Okay, so today we're going over Module 5 and 6, proving triangles are congruent. So our objective here is students will use a geometric proof to prove that two triangles are congruent. So let's get into example 1. So we're going to prove this statement that the two triangles here are congruent. Triangle MOP is congruent to NPQ. And again, they give you a given statement that we're going to use to prove that the two triangles are congruent. So we're going to start off by looking at our given statement here. So they tell us that the first part here, it says angle NQP is congruent to angle NPQ. So I'm going to start off by writing that down as my first statement. And the reason here is that that's what's given to me. So let me use this statement to mark on my triangle what that means. So MQP, so this angle, it says it's congruent to angle NPQ. So angle NPQ, so it means it's this angle right here. Okay, my next statement is another given statement here, which says angle MQP and NQP are both congruent to each other. So that's my second part here. And again, that was given to me. So let me mark on my triangle what that means. So angle MPQ, MPQ. So in this case, I'm going to put this as two angle marks, just to show that that's a different angle than the first two I marked. And it says congruent to angle NQP. So NQP, which means it's this angle right here. Okay, now next part, if you notice the two triangles they share a side. They share side QP. And since they both share that same side, we say here that that side equals itself because the two triangles share it. And the reason here is when one side is congruent to itself, we say that's the reflexive property. So the way I'm going to mark that on my triangle is I'm just going to put one little tick mark like this to show that those sides are congruent to each other. And now that I have all the information I need here, now I want to prove my statement by deciding what triangle congruence theorem is shown here. So if I start looking at the information given to me, this first part here, remember what's going in order, is a angle. I keep going to the right. Now I'll have a side. And the last part over here is another angle. So I'm going to say that the two triangles are congruent by the angle side angle triangle congruence theorem. And that completes my proof. Okay, let me go into example 2. So again here, I'm given some given statements. So let's look what they are. So first part says angle JLM and angle KML are congruent to each other. So let me mark that on my triangle. But again, my reason here is that they're given. So if I mark that on my triangle, JLM, so I hold JLM, so it's this angle right here, so we put a mark there. And then angle KML, so it's KML is right there. Okay, next one, my next given part is angle JML is congruent to KLM. Again, that's given to me, so I'm going to put that down. But when I mark this, so it says JML, so JML is this little angle right here. So I'm going to put this as two angle marks there. It's congruent to KLM. So KLM is this little angle right there. So I'm going to put two angle marks on this one. And so again, that's given. Now, if you notice, your two triangles we're trying to prove here are, let me highlight them. So we have this triangle right here. So this triangle is one of them. And then the other triangle is this one right here. So I have my two triangles there. And if you notice, they both share a side LM. And that's why I put on step 3, LM congruent to LM. So I'm just going to put a mark right there. And again, remember, when the side is equal to itself, we say that's a reflexive property. And now that I have all my information here, I want to prove that those two triangles are congruent. And again, the property I could use here is I first look at the information they give us. So here I have an angle that's congruent to itself for the other triangle. I have that as a side. And then I have my angle. So I'm going to say by the angle side angle triangle congruence theorem, these two triangles are congruent. Okay, into example 3. Okay, so here they give you some given statements, and then we're going to prove that the two triangles are congruent to each other. So let's start off by looking at what's given to us. So first of all, they tell us that angle P and angle R are right angles. So we put that as a first statement, and that's given to us. And if you notice on your triangle, it's already marked for you. So there's your right angle. Okay. Next thing they say is that side PS and RQ are congruent to each other. So it's already marked for you, side PS and QR. Those are congruent to each other. So again, I'll put that as step 2 in my statement. And the reason for that, it's also given. Now, if you notice, the two triangles, they share this side right here, SQ. So we just say that SQ is congruent to itself. And again, remember the property when one side is congruent to itself, we call that the reflexive property. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to mark it as a side. But again, remember, since I already marked side PS and QR with one tick mark, I'm going to mark this down with 2 marks just to show that that's a different side. So now, with that information, I have enough to prove that the two triangles are congruent. And then the property here, if you notice, this is a 90-degree angle, so it makes them 9 right triangles. So what I can use here is the hypotenuse leg theorem, congruence theorem. So what I have here first is that side that's opposite the 90-degree. That's my hypotenuse. It's congruent to itself. And then these two are the legs of my triangle. So here by the hypotenuse leg theorem, congruence theorem, these two triangles are congruent to each other. Okay, so now our last example. So here they tell you, given that B is the midpoint of AE and CD, you're going to prove that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DBE. Okay, so first of all, this time I didn't give you the information written already, so you're going to write this down. So remember, we have a given part, and this time they only give you one statement that's given. It says B is the midpoint of AE and CD. So I want to write that down. So B is the midpoint, and the reason here is given. So let's see what that means, and let's mark our triangle based on the information they give us. So, sorry about that. Let me erase this mark. Okay. So what I have here is, it tells us that B is the midpoint. So B is in the middle of these segments. So it's kind of cuts it in half. So that means it cuts AE in half. That means that this side and this side are equal to each other, congruent. It also means that CD is cut in half. That means that this side here is congruent to itself over here. So that's what it means to be a midpoint. That means that these segments end up being congruent because B is in the middle of them. Okay, so we were able to mark a triangle based on that. Now, we also notice something else here. You see this pair of vertical angles is formed right here. So that means that this angle here is congruent to this other angle over here. So what I'm going to say here is the angle ABC and angle DBE are both congruent to each other. And the reason here, again, remember these two angles, we call them vertical angles because they're vertical angles, they're congruent to each other. Okay, and now looking at your triangle, now we have enough information to prove our statement. So we look at our proof statement up here, which is triangle ABC and DBE are congruent to each other. So I write that down in step 3. The two triangles are congruent. And then the reason here, let's see what they give us. So if we go in order from one end to the other, these are side, an angle right there in the middle, they're angles. And then we have another pair of sides congruent to each other. That's my third side. So I have side angle side. And that's one of the congruency theorems. So we say here the reason for this is the two triangles are congruent by the side angle side congruence theorem. Okay, so now this is the last one. I want you to try this on your own and show me the results before moving on. So again, start off with your given statement and using that information, prove to me that these two triangles are congruent to each other. Okay, so you could pause the video here, take a few minutes to solve this, and then show me it before moving on. Okay, so now we're done with today's notes, so get your next stamp for completion and begin and finish your assignment by the end of the period.